Welcome to the video for number 11 from the Chapter 1 Part 2 quiz review. Number 11 states, a rectangular flower garden is planted in a rectangular yard that is 16 meters by 12 meters. The garden occupies 1/6 of the area of the yard and leaves a uniform strip of grass around the edges. Find the dimensions of the garden. All right, so let's start out here by making sure we understand what it's saying. Okay, so there's going to be a rectangular flower garden planted in a rectangular yard. So let's start out with our rectangular yard, right? So I'm going to draw a rectangular yard. Okay, that's our rectangular yard. And now we're going to draw a rectangular garden right inside, right? And it may not be drawn exactly to scale, but it says there that there is a uniform strip of grass around the edges. So what we're talking about here, this is our uniform strip of grass around the edges right here. Okay, that's our grass. Okay, the actual garden is this portion of it inside. It's the inner rectangle. Okay, now it says that the yard is 16 by 12. So I know you had some problems similar to this in your homework or in your notes, okay? But we were saying here this is 16 meters from here to here. So it's not the inner rectangle that's 16 meters, it's the outer rectangle. And we know that this one is 12 meters from here to here. Now, we know that this grass patch here, this grassy patch, right, is uniform width. So that means if that distance is x here, this distance is x. And the same thing on the top and the bottom. We've got x here, we got x here, we've got x there, and x there. Okay, so what we're looking at with this one, okay, is that the garden occupies 1/6 the area of the yard. Okay, so we can figure out the area of like the entire yard, right? Because its dimensions are 16 by 12. So if I said the area of the yard, right, that's going to equal 16 by 12, which would give us, I believe, 192 square meters. Okay, that is our area of the yard. Okay, now if I want to know the area of the garden, right, I know the area of the garden is 1/6 of that, right? So we're going to say, 1/6 times 192. So when we do 1/6 of 192, you can pull out a calculator if you need to do that, or however you wish to do it. I believe that should end up being, let me double check. Yeah, it should be 32, right? So that's 32 square meters is the area of the garden. Okay, so that's our area of the garden. So we know then, since this is 32 square meters in here, okay, what we want to do is we want to figure out an expression for the dimensions of the garden. Okay, so we've got this side, and then we've got this side right here. All right, well, if we think about it, let's start out with the red side. We know that if this entire distance up along the top, right, if this whole thing is 16, because it matches what we have on the bottom, right, but I'm going to have to cut off an x here, and I'm going to have to cut off an x there, right? So if the whole thing was 16 and I have to take off this part and this part, we can say that the length of this then would have to be 16 minus 2 x's. And then the same thing with our blue side, right? We're going to cut off, from our 12, we're going to cut off an x. and then we're going to cut off an x on this side, right? So we're actually going to have that full 12, but then we have to take away x twice. So that dimension would be 12 minus 2x. So we can come up with an equation, then our area of our garden is going to be set up as 16 minus 2x times the quantity of 12 minus 2x, or length times width, equals area. And our area is 32 square meters. Now, I'm not squaring 32, it's just talking about the type of meters we have there. So we're going to use the number 32. Now we can go through and solve. Let's go ahead and FOIL this out. We'll end up doing 16 times 12, right, which should be 192. And then we'll do 16 times negative 2, which would be negative 32x. Negative 2 times 12 is negative 24x. And then negative 2x times negative 2x would be positive 4x squared. Okay, let's combine our like terms, and I'm going to flip it around. I'm going to call this 4x squared minus 56x plus 192 is going to equal 32. And in order to solve it, right, we're going to need to subtract 32 from each side, so we set it equal to 0. We've got 4x squared minus 56x plus 160 equals 0. And now we are looking at the part of this where we need to factor it. Okay, so let's make these numbers easier if we can, right? 4, 56, and 160 are all divisible by 4. So we can factor out 4, and we are left with x squared minus 14x plus, let's see, 40 is equal to 0. And then that probably will factor for us again. So we're going to say we have an x, we have an x, we have minus and a minus. So factors of 40 that add to 14, well, that's going to be what, 10 and 4. And then when we set those two factors equal to 0, because they have x's, we'll get x equals 10 and x equals 4. Okay, so what we have to think about now here is which of these answers will work and which ones won't. Okay, so if I try to take this 10 and plug it in, right, if you think about, if we're trying to find the length of these sides here, like that blue side, if I said 12 minus 2 times 10, I'm going to end up with that side being 12 minus 20, or negative 8 meters. That doesn't make any sense, right? So we can't use the 10, so let's focus on the 4. If we take our 4 and we plug it in, we'd have 12 minus 2 times 4, which is going to be 12 minus 8, which is 4 meters. That seems to work. We check it with the top one, 16 minus 2 times 4. That would give us 16 minus 8, which is going to be 8. And if you think about it, if your dimensions are 4 meters by 8 meters there, that is a total area of 32 square meters. So we can now state then the dimensions of the garden are 4 meters by 8 meters. Not that hard to write a sentence there. Capital letter in the front, punctuation at the end, and we've got the correct units on there. And that is the answer for this problem. If you have additional questions, please make sure you're reaching out.